Mark Leibovich is a CBS News political contributor and chief national correspondent for the New York Times Magazine and joins me now from the Times newsroom in Washington. And Mark, let's get right to these cabinet selections. Elaine Chao now to transportation, Congressman Tom Price to Health and Human Services. When you look at those two and the ones already made, it would seem for a noted Beltway outsider in Donald Trump, he is putting together a rather standard issue GOP cabinet.
Yeah, these are certainly insiders. I mean, Elaine Chao is not only is she married to Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, she is the former Secretary of Labor under President Bush. And by the way, a little piece of trivia, she is actually the second person in history to be married to a Senate Majority Leader and also serve as both Secretary of Transportation, if she's confirmed, and Secretary of Labor. Elizabeth Dole also did the exact same thing, and she was married to Robert Dole back in the 90s. So now that I've gotten my trivia out of the way, it's a great little fun fact. Yeah. You know what? I just actually found that on Twitter, so it has to be true. And Tom Price, obviously, yeah, he's a member of Congress. I think this certainly signals that Donald Trump is very serious about dismantling the Affordable Care Act. Tom Price has been very outspoken about that. He certainly knows the law. And but yes, it's going to it sounds like it will flow from within the system, and these are people who know the system well and who have operated within it.
Well, then I do wonder how this will inform his search yet completed for a Secretary of State. Tonight he will be sitting down to dinner, we're told, with Mitt Romney. His candidacy was savaged over the long Thanksgiving weekend by folks such as Kellyanne Conway. It would appear that that savaging was not met with any resistance by the president-elect. So what do you think's going on here?
You know, not only was it not met with any resistance by the president-elect, but we, the New York Times today reported that essentially it had at least, some kind of arm's length sanction from him. So he seemed to know what she was doing or even encouraged it. This is consistent with the kind of drama that Donald Trump seems to have fostered around him in the course of his career. He seems to enjoy it on a level. The question I have is why Mitt Romney would subject himself to this, because either he will be named Secretary of State, and it would seem like it would wound him coming in, or it's Donald Trump's way of humiliating him for his criticism during the campaign.
Okay, so answer your own question. Answer your question that you just posed there. Why would Mitt Romney subject himself to this if that's the
I don't know that. I've actually talking to some of his aides yesterday. I mean, it's a bit of a mystery. I mean, part of it is, one, maybe he really wants the job and he's kind of bored. Foreign policy is something he's been very outspoken about since he lost the 2012 election. It's the one cabinet job, probably more than any other, as Hillary Clinton sort of showed in 2008, that you can really sort of make your own imprint. You can work somewhat independently and enact your own vision. And I think probably one of the things that he and President-elect Trump are talking about is how much autonomy he would have, how the two of them would work together, if much at all. And maybe he really thinks he can get the job and would like the job. To me, it's still a bit of a mystery given what, all the water that's been under the bridge over the last several months, but we'll see.
Our Major Garrett assigned ballpark figures then to a final three, if you will. He had Governor Romney at 30%. A new entry, General Petraeus, at 30%, while Rudy Giuliani still remains his leader in the clubhouse at 40%. What do you make of the candidacy of General Petraeus?
Well, I mean, Petraeus is obviously, despite his, what forced him to leave, his job a few years ago. He was accused of, sharing classified information with his mistress, which was very serious. It's certainly, he's a very well-respected figure in both parties. Besides all that, it would be a little problematic given that Hillary Clinton was savage during the campaign for doing, very similar things.
Could he survive confirmation, Mark?
I think he probably could. He does seem to have a lot of bipartisan support, or at least he did. He served under President Obama. John McCain's a big supporter of his. He has relationships on the Hill. He worked very hard to foster them when he was in office. So I think he would probably be a pretty safe bet for confirmation. Unless there's other stuff that we don't know about. I think issues would be raised around, the classified information, but I think that he could probably get through it, probably more so than Giuliani could.
In his last 24 hours, we have seen a Twitter squall of a sort from the president-elect. He has attacked CNN, a frequent target of his attacks. He has made the case and retweeted previous tweets about voter fraud, and also raised the issue of flag burning, and in so doing suggested in the tweet that perhaps there should be consequences such as the loss of citizenship or a year in jail. Now, we are talking about a freedom of speech issue. The First Amendment now squarely in play here. Is this just the president-elect trolling, or is there some greater motive?
Well, I mean, flag burning, it's legal under the Constitution. The Supreme Court upheld it, including Antonin Scalia, who, Donald Trump holds up as a model Supreme Court justice. It's unclear where this sort of came from. It's not like flag burning was a big issue during the campaign, or even if it's really much of a thing at all. I mean, it was a big, pretty heated debate about 20 years ago or so, maybe 25 years ago. I don't know. It could be a diversion. I mean, diversion. I mean, given all the issues that have been raised about his financial entanglements over the weekend, which is consistent with a lot of the voter fraud stuff. But yeah, I mean, I've sort of not only have I given up trying to read the motives of Donald Trump on his Twitter feed, but me and many other members of the media have been wrong before. So I probably should step back on that. But yeah, it's certainly curious, and I'll be curious to see if it continues once he's in office.
I'll get you out of here on this one then. It's also now created a separate debate in the social media sphere as to whether or not the media collectively should just ignore his tweets and focus on stories such as the one that appeared in the New York Times over the weekend. I just had Aaron Blake on from the Washington Post, who says we simply can't do that. We cannot let go our collective responsibility. Is it your sense, though, in his inner circle, that someone has sat down with him and made the point in the end that words matter more now, and that perhaps he needs to step away?
If there is someone in his inner circle who is making that case, he or she has not done a very good job, I would say. I mean, there have been any number of pivot points or alleged pivot points over the last year or so when he was supposedly going to internalize that lesson. It just has never happened. I think, as we've heard over and over and over again, he's going to do what he wants. Kellyanne Conway herself kept reiterating yesterday, it's one man's decision and we will respect that. I don't know if there's a method to the madness here, but it's certainly unprecedented, and I do think the media has a responsibility certainly to point it out, especially when it's inaccurate, and also, though, to put it in the context of the other larger issues that are being raised, whether it's his financial entanglements or him breaking campaign promises or what have you. So it's obviously a learning curve both for him, but also the media and how to cover it, but I think we have to point it out, especially when it's wrong.
Hear, hear. Mark Leibovich of the New York Times Magazine, as always, my friend, appreciate the time.
Josh, always fun. Thanks.